Georgia Virtue presents the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast.
This is episode 251. This week, we have planes, trains, and automobiles, a SoFi swear-in, Stacy is in heavy debt, legislative privilege, and the beginning of our 2023 legislative preview. I'm Dave Roberts. With me is my partner in endeavor, writer, journalist, dog mom, and owner of the GeorgiaVirtue.com, Jessica Szilagyi.
Hi, Dave.
Howdy, how's your week?
Oh, it was full of news. How was your week?
Busy, wasn't it? It was a busy track of the news last week.
Yeah, it was wild.
And I know you don't get into national politics very much.
No,
but
it was some of it was hard to avoid.
We did get McCarthy right after we recorded, naturally.
The McCarthy thing to do.
It's a very McCarthy thing to do. Yeah, so they can now move on with the business of the people or just throwing subpoenas everywhere. Who knows? And, of course, we got a special prosecutor for the president and his documents. So that will be interesting, but not really a story we're carrying because we don't know what the documents are yet.
True.
I mean, yes, they were classified, and yes, they obviously were mishandled, but I doubt there are any actionable pieces of intelligence sitting in the garage by his Corvette, which he made sure to tell us he had a Corvette several times. But his week wasn't as bad as Pothole Pete. Pete Buttigieg, Secretary of Transportation.
He had a tough week.
He did. Was it Wednesday that all the planes were grounded? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. Here's what happened. There's a notice-to-air emission system. And that sends messages to the pilots. And it used to be called Notice to Airmen. But one of the first things that Buttigieg did when he got into office was to make that more inclusive, so say Notice to Air Emission. That happens to be the system that failed.
Dun, dun, dun.
So it's something that you'll get pop-up alerts that, like, essentially it's an old version of text messaging. Basically saying, look, runway 52 is closed at SFO, or I think that's the message system that everybody was celebrating when the masks came off on commercial flights, that the message came across on that. I'm not saying that one thing has anything to do with the other, but instead of updating the system, they decided that we're going to rename it because it's not inclusive enough to say Notice to Airmen. And on the same day, we have a 20-hour delay train from the D.C. area, Northern Virginia, to Orlando. There was a freight train derailment. And, of course, trains can't just jump tracks. Well, not successfully. But this antiquated system where Amtrak couldn't figure out how to route around this thing. It's not like it derailed right in front of them. They were stuck. I mean, then you just hosed. This was ahead on the road. I mean, is there anything less efficient than government running anything?
No. Even Frontier and Comcast and Windstream, they all still, in their awfulness, rise up. Yeah,
look, 17 hours from D.C. to Orlando on a train, and this was what they call a car train that you hop on and you have your vehicle pulled with you. So I guess it's a convenient way to sit down and watch the countryside go by. I was overnight, I don't know what you're watching, but just sit down and then get to Orlando and have your car with you. I guess that's a cool enough idea. 17 hours if everything's on time. Seems like a long time from Northern Virginia to Orlando. Like, just for giggles, I looked up Atlanta to New Orleans. Mm-hmm. It's like 3 or 4 hours longer than if I just drive. But how do you screw up Department of Transportation?
I guess you have to try.
I mean, you get the idea because Buttigieg is young. The best thing he did when he got into office was take 2 months off for paternity leave or adoption leave, whatever it is. That's about the most effective he's been. It seems like he was paid off for his endorsement, and that's just politics by giving a cabinet position. And they said, what can Pete not F up? Let's give him transportation. Most of those agencies take care of themselves. Yeah, you couldn't make him Secretary of Defense. You couldn't make him, make him Secretary of State. I mean, you can't put him in any real responsibility because he's a neophyte. So we'll give him DOT and pay him off for his loyalty, and there's no way he could screw that up. Yet here we are.
Here we are, living the dream under Pete.
Live the dream under Pete. I'll pass. So we have the Georgia legislature and dereliction of duty, Jessica.
Yeah, well, everyone knows that they totally make me lose my sense of humor, and I don't think anything they do is funny. I don't like their jokes. I don't like their lightheartedness. Like, you're elected to do a job. You're part-time. It's not that hard to, not cause people to suffer or anything else, and yet they continue to just, think it's not that important of a job, I guess. I don't know. Obviously, the national championship was on Monday. That was the first day of the session. They gavelled in the House at 9:30. I'm not sure if the Senate gavelled in at 9:30 or 10, but, they swear them all in. It's very quick. A lot of them went to the game, which is fine. Several of them went to be sworn in and then went to the airport and left and made it there with plenty of time, and it doesn't seem like there was any disruption. But then there's the jackass Houston Gaines, who was literally sworn in the stadium with a Supreme Court justice who was there, and Governor Kemp holding the Bible for him next to his wife. And Houston is from the Athens area, so he knows the Kemps. And first of all, I think it makes me more mad, I'll just disclose, because his voting record is crap. He's basically a Democrat, but likes to pretend that he has conservative leanings, which he does not. But it's just ugly. He said, not a bad backdrop for a swearing in. Thank you to Governor Brian Kemp, First Lady, and Supreme Court Justice John Ellington for the honors. I'm ready to officially begin my third term in the House. I remember in 2021, Trey Kelly, friend of the show, he had COVID when they were sworn in, and he had to do it from the parking lot. I feel like that's the farthest you should be able to be sworn in. If you're not there to be sworn in, you're not sworn in. It's mandatory. I don't understand. This job is mandatory. You asked for it.
Yeah, I don't know if locale really makes a difference legally, or if he was sworn in again when he got back. I know for re-enlistment ceremonies and stuff, we've sworn people in on mountainsides and airplanes and things like that.
Well, that's an honorable job.
Though. Well, I don't know about that, but that's federal. And it's a different thing. You can re-enlist while you're deployed. I would agree with you that that's not a great look.
Don't tell anybody.
It's just the legality of it. I don't know. I saw the picture. I didn't care about it. I know reps that did exactly what you said. They swore in the morning. They caught a noon flight. They were in LA by 1 or 2 local time. Hop in a cab, get to the stadium, watch the game, come back on the red eye.
Well, and they didn't meet on Tuesday, and then Wednesday they didn't convene till 11, so they had plenty of time to get back. I mean, that's not an issue. I just think it's so, it's like they want to rub it in people's faces, hey, I do things the way that I want, and I don't care what you think about it. That's the message it sends.
I don't think that sends the message to his constituents. I mean, especially being from Athens area. Like, look, I'm here at the game supporting our Bulldogs. I mean,
it wasn't even a game. I hope they all feel like they didn't even get their money's. I hope they feel like they got ripped off.
Well, the whole nation got ripped off when Michigan didn't beat TCU. I know you care so much about the foosball.
Mm-hmm.
But
Houston thinks he's a loser.
I don't know if they felt that it was waste because it was a party. Because after the first quarter, it was 45 minutes of playing time of a party. So much so that Bennett, the starting quarterback, was yanked was given opportunity to go out and get a standing ovation, which is nice for a senior. It's his last game. And hand it over to who's going to be taking the reins next year. I mean, it was a cool game. This is not a sports podcast, but yeah, it's.
If you are going to act like you want the job, you should act like you want the job. Like, this isn't like a regular job where you have to have it to like survive and you're just doing it to get by or what. Like, this is a job you asked for.
Not yet.
Well, there's no reason for there to be. There's no reason.
Even if it was done in the parking lot or done before leaving or done whatever, you're right. The optics aren't great. Doesn't hurt the governor at all. I mean, he didn't miss his inauguration.
No, and I mean, yeah, whatever.
That would have been hilarious. Have the inaugural ball here and have Kemp come in via Zoom from SoFi Stadium.
Yeah, because he missed it. Mm-hmm. Yep. I don't know. It's an ugly look. That's all.
Yeah. Then we have Josh McLaurin tweeted, Georgia Senate just failed to adopt its own rules on a majority vote because some Republicans are absent. Motion to reconsider now happening. That's what happens when Democrats pick up seats.
So on Monday, obviously, some of them were not present in the Senate. Republican-wise, Bill Cowser, Frank Ginn, Rick Williams, they were not present. And then John Kennedy, who is president of the Senate, did not vote on the rules, the resolution to adopt the rules of how they operate. And so they didn't have enough votes because, one, generally the opposing party or the minority party does not like the rules because they favor the majority party, of course. And then also, I think they knew that they didn't have enough votes, and how stupid does it make them look? Because your senators were at a freaking frat party because they can't all let go of their college years and just be adults. And so they literally could not adopt the rules. They had a motion to reconsider and they still didn't have the votes because the Democrats wouldn't come across the aisle for them. And understandably, because we're going to talk about it in a little while, but some of the rules are absolute garbage. So I mean, I wouldn't expect Democrats to just be like, okay, fine, in the interest of business, we'll do it. No, they're crappy rules. But so they do all this and then they have to table the rules until Wednesday when everybody came back to work and they were able to get them, it's pathetic.
Yeah, look, if you have a real job and you want to take that Monday off and they say, look, no, your options are either don't go to the game or quit your job. And I know a lot of this is tied up in probably gifts. Like, going to the game was so expensive. Obviously, you didn't know for sure that Georgia was going, and some fans did gamble, go ahead and buy airline tickets ahead of time and all that, but nonstop ATL to LAX, then a hotel near where a major event is going on, could not have been cheap, and tickets were thousands of dollars a piece. So it was I understand you're buying an experience.
No, you're buying a Facebook photo to tell everybody you did it.
I've been to SEC championship games and all that stuff. It's a cool experience. But, I went to the SEC championship game for a few $100s, not $10,000 or whatever it is. It would end up being for 2 tickets, 2 airline tickets, even flying coach, which sounds appalling to me to fly 4.5 hours coach.
Oh, horror.
God, not even Comfort Plus. But yeah, I mean, there's guys do crazy stuff to go to games. I mean, I know a group of guys who drove down for the Florida Georgia game that morning for a 3:30 kickoff, then went to watch the game and left after the end of the game and drove back to Atlanta. And the game's in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And guys do crazy stuff for that. But I did like the little jab that Ken Poland got in.
Yeah.
Replying to the tweet, "You didn't go to the game?"
Well, because it's just, like, you make, not you, but like these people make the argument that they need to be full-time because they don't have enough time to get stuff done. And, it's a full-time job. They give so much. They give their all. Really? I'm having a hard time finding it. Where is it? Where's your all?
Well, not everybody has as much all as everybody else.
Yeah.
Everybody complains about their job. And if it makes it sound a lot more like it's a service and sacrifice when you piss and moan about it, going, but I'd do it for my constituents. No, the fringe benefits are pretty cool.
Whatever.
Yeah, but we want to go ahead and make this like Congress, pay every one of us $185,000 a year, and still work 40 legislative days, just have it cover 12 months. The biggest problem with that is you lose anybody who's not wealthy enough to take that job.
Or unprincipled enough.
Or unprincipled enough. Because even at $185 a year, I don't know if that's how much they were actually going to do. But even with that, your hitch is only 2 years.
I guess.
You're gonna give up future earnings for 2 years of making 100,000 plus? No. Lord, no. That's probably just me being a snob. But I guess it finally did pass Wednesday.
It did.
And it was always going to.
Yeah, Rick Williams, who just came from the House, and he's down in Glenn County. He's absolutely terrible. He'll be even worse over in the Senate. But BFF to Jackie Johnson, former district attorney who is now disgraced and facing criminal charges herself. That's our friend. But Rick Williams is, he was not there. And then when they actually did pass it, and then, what's it called? Who was it? Senator John Kennedy, again, who's the Senate pro tem. Like, what are you doing, dude? Again, you want to be there. And we're kind of jumping around a little bit, but I feel like it's relevant to go ahead and talk about the rules instead of interjecting the mule of the week in between. But basically, they, again, are talking about legislative privilege, and it's such a hilarious concept because they call themselves citizen legislators, but they're not subject to the Georgia Open Records Act. You know, they have pushed back in court on so many things, talking about like what it means to be their legislative business and when that is subject to public disclosure. And during all the Trump grand jury investigation stuff, there were arguments about whether or not they would be forced to or compelled to testify. And a judge said, yes, you know, you have broad immunity. But like if you had conversations about your legislative business with people outside of the legislature, that's not protected. And that was the argument that a lot of them were trying to make. So in these rules that they passed that they couldn't pass on Monday because of their absences, they decided to basically not like these rules will shield communication with people outside the legislature too, to include like the media. It would like protect them as sources and whistleblowers. They wouldn't have to disclose that they were the ones that said that. If they talk to you or I or their spouse is not really a good example, but just friends or, you know, colleagues or constituents, like they don't have that would be protective communications under these rules that they are trying to assert are like more intact and hold more weight than a subpoena or a state statute, which is interesting because they write the state statutes.
It does not have more weight than a state statute.
Well, they're trying to claim it does, but I hear you.
I mean, it's the state statute doesn't outweigh the state constitution.
Correct.
So they can pass whatever the rule they want on that. It's irrelevant because it'll come down to what judges ultimately think, and what it certainly does invite, which we love to do, invite litigation.
Well,
and I understand the legislative powers and privilege that go along with the sausage grinding that goes into making a bill.
As it's happening.
As it's happening, yes, the sausage grinding that goes into the bill.
But after that, I mean, they act like they have national secrets.
Right. Well, it depends if they're holding an investigation, if they've got a subcommittee and they're doing some sort of investigation, and they want to protect their sources. But really, that's under the heading of the executive branch to handle those investigations. And having a part-time legislature, and I'm not stumping for full-time, obviously, you don't have time to run endless investigations like they do in Congress.
Well, and what's hilarious is that, you know, like you're talking about executive agencies or executive branch conducting investigations and any type of like being the check, like the entire premise of our government is the three separate but equal branches that are checks on each other. Well, the whole reason that they claim that they're not subject to things like the Open Records Act, which is governed by state law, but starts in the Attorney General's office, is because they say that it would be improper for the executive to impose that power or, you know, that ruling on the legislature, which, again, if they wanted to say that, like, this year's legislative, I mean, I'm not saying, I think this is a blanket, but I'm speaking broadly because I'm not all in on this. But if they wanted to, like, make the argument that you couldn't access stuff from the 2023 session until, you know, information pertaining to that, or until the legislative session had concluded for that calendar year, I would understand, because like and also it would be an absolute chaos. As much as I think that their information should be as public as possible, I understand it would make for chaos if in the middle of a session they're all trying to like provide emails and everything while also, I get it. But everywhere we turn, they're constantly saying, well, that doesn't apply to us. That doesn't apply to us. And it absolutely does if you're doing it right. And second, what are you so afraid of?
That's what I'm curious about.
I mean,
because this comes about
legislative
with the
stuff.
but this comes about with investigation on Trump and his alleged interference. Mm-hmm. This all comes down to Fannie Willis and her witch hunt.
Right.
So it is curious to me as to what was said and why they think it's privileged, and then why they're trying to hide it.
What could you possibly be so protective about?
Right. I mean, is there? I can't imagine that Trump maybe somebody from the Trump administration contacted some of the House members about not validating the vote.
Oh, okay.
About alternate electors and things like that. That's the only thing I could think is they're trying to protect themselves from that.
Well,
that's the only thing I could think.
Yeah.
Because this is awfully specific at a very specific time. Because the grand jury is seated right now, aren't they?
In Fulton?
Yes.
They just dissolved it.
Did they just dissolve it?
I think on Monday or Tuesday they dissolved it. And we're kind of like in this weird spot where we're gonna, I guess a judge has to rule whether or not we can see those documents. Isn't that fun? Yeah, we're going to find out if we're worthy.
And if she gets an indictment.
Right. Now, the fact that they have been so tight-lipped about it kind of makes me think that, I mean, well, one, I'm proud that the people on the grand jury, no matter where they stand, have taken it seriously and understand that they're not supposed to talk about it. There haven't been any leaks about it. But I don't know.
No leaks is best.
Yeah.
This is a good time to remind you that these are our opinions and not those of anyone not on the show or any respective company for which we may work, own, or otherwise associate ourselves with on a regular or irregular basis. Also, you can find other stories and other relevant stories and episodes over at thegeorgiavirtue.com. I knew I was going to mess it up.
That's all
knew
right.
That was coming. All right, your mule of the week.
Stacey Abrams, man. What on earth has happened? So,
She's in a ton of trouble.
When she ran for governor the first time, she took a lot of heat for owing taxes, and she took the violin route and saying, "Oh, I was trying to pay for my family, and I worked so hard, and blah 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 blah." And I just got behind on taxes, and then of course, like when she rose to fame really quickly and started Fair Fight and everything else, and had her book deals, and suddenly she was able to pay the money off, which I'm glad. Like, nobody wants to be under the gun from the dang IRS, so props. But okay, so she has her taxes. Her 2018 platform was all about spending, and then her 2022 platform was all about spending. And we find out recently in the disclosures that she raised $113 million in her campaign and through her leadership committee, and she spent it all, and she ended $1.4 million in debt to different vendors. And I'm just wondering, what in the fresh hell?
1.2 million.
No.
Owed to vendors.
No, 1.4.
1.4.
1.2 million of that is what her media firm owes, like what One Georgia, which is the PAC thing committee, owes to her media firm, AL Media. Now, you could say to yourself, okay, but did she really spend that money, and did they upcharge and blah blah blah, all of that? Oh, we'll never know. There's always that like cookie under the cup thing where they're like, that's how all campaigning works. It's almost never on the up and up. It's always with friends and blah blah blah. Whatever. But what is, whether she owes herself or a friend or whomever, like $113 million, and she couldn't even end at zero. That is somebody who is wholly unfit to be in an executive position.
Wait, she told me she did the math. Mm-hmm. You don't remember the commercial where she did her homework and she sat down because she's an expert and balanced budgets and things like that, working with Governor Deal or whoever it was.
Okay, well,
you don't remember
those
commercials about how smart she is with money?
She can't count. It's unacceptable.
I have to say dollars are bullets in a political campaign. But she had all the ammo she needed and still got her ass handed to her. She's a bad candidate. And I would assume a fine-tooth comb being taken to her financial disclosures and all the documents would show that there was a lot of money funneled into businesses that she and her friends and family own. Like that $113 million or whatever it is was not spent wisely with the most affordable vendors and things like that. Now, she did get a lot of TV time, but whoever was in charge of her media, her social media stuff, her commercials, they owe her a refund because it was awful.
Well, $113 million. Like how is I don't understand.
How do you fall that far short when Hollywood has you on a episode of one of the Star Trek things? They're putting you out constantly. You're in front of all the stay-at-home moms on The View and everything else, and all the free media she got, and still blew well over $100 million and is over $1 million in debt.
Yeah, I don't know. It's embarrassing.
But where does that money come from if a campaign's in debt like that?
Kemp raised $90 million between his campaign and the leadership committee, and he ended his race with $5.2 million in the bank. And of course, like, they moved money back and forth, both of them, between their campaign funds and the committee funds. And again, like I said, that's a shell game. But if you know that you have $113 million basically to spend in a different, like, I don't understand how that, like, if you're off by like $10,000, I could be like, okay, it got down to the wire. You got a little excited. I wouldn't think it was very good, but at least, I don't know.
I think her donations dried up in the last 2 weeks. And they, for a period of time, they probably continued their arc of spending with the anticipation that they would raise more money coming in the last 2 weeks. And I think the big donors realized they were throwing good money after bad and pulled back. Because I think we had a story the last couple of weeks of the campaign, she wasn't collecting money. She wasn't doing
No, and they had to cut stuff. I still love the quote from her campaign manager, Lauren Grow-Wargo. We did not just lose. We got blown out. It was just the most suboptimal situation to be in, and we will be dealing with that situation for some time.
Which means me, as a political operative, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, good thing she still has her fair fight and fair count, which is alarming that she thinks she's an organization about counting.
Well, like I said, after all the media campaigns she ran about, I did my homework and I did the math. Look, there had to be funny business going on, but there, like you said, there is at that level in a lot of campaigns. But it feels to me like they were on a spending trajectory and anticipated bringing more money in the last couple of weeks, and got themselves upside down. It's not an excuse. I'm just saying it feels like that's probably a pretty good indication of somebody who's well ran dry before they anticipated it. Mm-hmm. Because they just thought they could go back to the donors, go back. So anyway, At least we don't have to hear from her for another couple of years until, I guess, another 3 years until the Senate race, which I'm sure she'll want to square off with Kemp again.
No.
So we have proposed initiatives thus far. Kemp seeks to deliver another $1 billion in income tax refunds and $1 billion property tax rebate.
Yeah, we've got like a, $6.6 billion surplus right now, which, I mean, it's why we were able to suspend the gas tax when they, for so long, for 10 months. I think that's an optimal way to, I think people should get refunds and rebates, even though I don't think you should be taking it from them in the first place. But that's the optimal way to spend money, is to give it back to people, right? But there's particularly with the property tax rebate, don't you think that's going to cause problems with local governments?
Depends on how they do it. All this depends on how they do it. If they're doing true income tax refunds, yes, that's great. If they're doing a handout that everybody's going to get a refund, even if you didn't pay, that's not a refund, that's a handout. Mm-hmm. All of it depends on the execution. I am appreciative of the fact that he didn't win re-election and immediately go, okay, all right, let's tighten everything up and roll for the next 3 years until I want to run for something else. Mm-hmm. That he's continuing this arc of giving people back what they paid in. Now, would this be better served as a income tax cut going forward, or dare I say elimination?
Yeah,
probably.
I think with what's coming with the economy, they can't, they're just not going to do that right now. They know. If you don't know what's coming, you're an idiot. But, I don't know.
Here's the political perception. Getting a $400 check makes the average person happy. Getting $40 back more a month at your paycheck, people don't register. It just doesn't register to them. So it's the whole thing with as we're coming into income tax season. People running around like 5-year-olds at the dollar store, looking for something to spend their money on because they got this check from the government. So I would like to see the elimination of the income tax going forward and move to a consumption tax, because that brings everybody into the fold. Everybody pays consumption tax,
and it would also make us more competitive with our state neighbors.
Oh, absolutely. And we have a lot of people who hit us in the crossroads. Either stop at ATL connecting a flight, because anywhere in the Southeast, if you're going to fly Delta, a lot of times your hub is Atlanta. So all those people that get off the airplane and go and buy something, if we're straight consumption tax, we'd get a piece of all of that. Mm-hmm. Every person who stops at Buc-ee's for some beaver nuggets or beef jerky, we'd get a bigger piece of that. Every person making all their money on OnlyFans that isn't claiming it, guess what? They have to spend that money somewhere, and that money gets taxed. But yeah, we're not going to see them doing that, especially as we come into a probable recession, and spending will go down significantly. But again, so are salaries.
Yeah. He did. I mean, I just don't understand why he wants to be this person. But Kemp is already talking about more raises for teachers.
I don't know. Was Marty a teacher?
I don't know.
I mean, look, we all agree, teaching can suck. But the biggest thing that's made teaching suck is not the pay. It's the No Child Left Behind and the government interference in the classroom, between the government getting between a teacher and a student. Mm-hmm. And say, we know you want to teach, but you need to teach this test so that we can keep our federal funds coming in. That's why teaching sucks. That's why teachers are leaving the profession. They knew damn well when they spent that money to go to college and get a degree in early education or any sort of degree in education that you were not. This was not a good investment. You know, you could have spent the same money getting a different master's degree and walk out of there making a lot more money than a school teacher. You do it because you love doing what you do. But you know, that's when I hear. I told you I was in a meeting one day, and somebody we were meeting at the Capitol. So I popped up and say, "We need to do something about teacher salaries, and my property taxes are too high." And about 4 of us turned and looked. What the hell? You can't have both. But anyway, the bills in the House. Sandra Scott, HB 4.
She's always our God love her. She always comes up with some real doozies. She wants to create an electronic inpatient psychiatric bed registry so that, obviously not like public, but
be better if it was public. Because then you know what information the government's holding on you. She wants an electronic inpatient bed registry, psychiatric. Every time stuff like this comes up, I go back to red flag laws and how damaging that is to people who need to seek mental health. And need to seek help.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're
who
worried.
Wants to be on a registry?
Right. Exactly. And you go in and you talk to your counselor, therapist, or a psychiatrist, and the whole idea behind therapy is honesty. Well, if you you're going to hold back a bunch if you're worried about coming up on a list or having your rights taken from you. Oddly enough, red flag laws say you're too crazy to own a gun, but you still go to the ballot box. Thankfully, we don't have them here. All right, Billy Mitchell, HB 13.
Yeah. So, I mean, this one's not terrible. I just don't really understand. But he wants to have licenses in Georgia updated to have a spot for people to opt in to put their blood type on their driver's license, like you do for whether or not you're an organ donor. I mean, I don't see a big problem with it if it's voluntary, but how many people? I mean, I obviously know my blood type, but is the government going to be blood typing people?
Are you going to take their word for it?
The only thing that I could think of was, like, if you got in a car wreck and you needed blood right away, but don't they give you O negative if they don't know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, I didn't really...
Yes, you have universal donors. Mm-hmm. No, the advantage of it is fine. I mean, obviously, that's why it's on ID tags and on military IDs. That and a lot of guys, modern stuff, they have their blood type on their gear. So you don't have to get to treatment and get typed and cross matched. I don't have a problem with the information being available. I just don't know what mechanism they're going to use to assure that someone doesn't say they are A negative when they're actually AB negative and end up with a transfusion reaction, and who they're going to blame when the information is incorrect in the license. But in principle, I don't have a problem with it. It once again, in execution will be everything.
Sure. No, I mean, it's not inherently bad. It's an interesting thing to be number 13. Like, he was like, yeah, let's do this.
And that may get folded in with another bill. Like I said, I don't think it's a bad idea. I just don't know the mechanisms that they're going to put in place to make sure people are properly labeled with their blood type. Because hell, you go get your license at 16, you may not even be aware you have a blood type. Mm-mm. Or you assume it matches your parents and find out that your parents aren't your parents. Remember, your daddy's only your daddy because your mama says so.
Lord.
All right, Alan Powell, HB 17.
Ballot boxes. They want to require when the person at the polls takes the ballots out of those drop boxes that are outside of the polls, they want them to put them in a box and then secure the box, seal it, and to establish a chain of custody that has like a signature, a number, all that jazz. And then, of course, like after they're scanned, they want them to put it into a new box that would be tamper-proof, would also have seals, dates, and signatures. And seems like a simple way to deal with the situation is to get rid of the ballot drop boxes. But I guess that's not an option anymore. I guess we're not even going to talk about that.
Yeah, getting rid of the ballot boxes, either mail them in properly.
Or walk them in the door.
Well, we do need better control over. I think drop boxes are getting the most of the blame for things that are also institutionally incorrect within the Secretary of State's office with elections and boards of elections, which is control over the memory cards and things like that. That stuff needs to be signed for, labeled, and you should know where at any given time an election supervisor should walk into the precinct and go, all right, thumb drive. Drive 5 was signed out by John Smith. John Smith, let me see drive 5. And but it should be that simple.
Couldn't even do that in 2020. I mean, we know this now. Like, we learned that our Secretary of State's office couldn't even track the memory cards and all of that. So what makes them think that this will be a thing?
I don't know. It's the desire to do something. I don't keeping all that stuff under dual control is a great idea. No one poll worker should be able to go out and gather ballots. Mm-hmm. There should be 2 of them. If we're going to live with these boxes, there should be 2 of them. 2 of them verify how many ballots are going in, whatever it is. It's going into this sealed box. I sign, you sign.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Everything should be under dual control. Nobody should be handling ballots by themselves. Every piece of technology that's signed out should be signed out under dual control, where you have a witness saying, are you saying, yes, I'm taking it, and me saying as the person in charge of that, yes, I gave it to you. And both of us have our signature on there. So again, those thumb drives, where are they? Well, I know this person signed them out. So that sort of stuff operationally should be controlled by Secretary of State. But again, the idea on 17 is not bad.
No, but I just don't understand how that's going to I don't know.
What it's gonna functionally do, I don't know. I don't know. That's above my pay grade there. Would it make it harder to cheat? Maybe.
Maybe until they figure out I'm not saying we shouldn't have anything just because they're going to keep figuring out ways to get around it, but it's just like people who want to be unethical or people who want to take beyond a campaign donation, then they're supposed if people want to be unethical, they're going to be unethical.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, if you're a Democrat working in a heavy Republican area with a drop box, the chances are if you make a handful of ballots disappear, the majority of them are going to be Republican. I think you have a good idea with getting rid of the drop boxes, or putting them inside offices where it's not open 24 hours a day. You need to go to the election office, or hell, go to the sheriff's office and walk in and drop your ballot. I was going to say, where you're being observed and someone's going to notice if you're dumping 30 ballots in. Sorry, Jessica.
No, I mean, if they're not secure, damn well that if it came to saying you got to go to a sheriff's office, they'd be like, oh, the intimidation. I mean,
no, the sheriff's office, usually the lobby's open 24 hours a day.
I know. I'm just saying, they would say that you shouldn't have to go be in front of.
I know that they would say that. It's. I know that that's what they would be screaming. That's voter intimidation. Well, then go between 9 and 5 to the election office, or go to. Fire departments usually don't just have people sitting around at most stations, but go to the library. But somewhere that somebody's going to see you. The chances are, if you're dumping a Kroger bag full of ballots, that someone's going to notice it. Instead of just sitting out in the street, or not on the street, but in front of a government building, you can pull up at 2:00 in the morning and dump all you want in there. So we have, I assume, Joni's brother Billy Mitchell, H.R. 8.
Obviously, it's a resolution in the House, and it's just to encourage the Biden administration to make the 28th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution the Equal Rights Amendment. I guess because people aren't equal. I don't know. I don't know. Seems like a waste of. I mean, you can drop whatever the hell you want to drop. Sure.
And the Biden administration is going to do whatever the hell they want to do. But you sure do sound like you care a lot more about people when you put something like this out.
Yeah.
I mean, so many things are. Some of these bills are dropped for campaign purposes. So they can go ahead and say, "Look, these are the things that I dropped. I'm fighting for you." Or Alan Powell could say, "I'm out fighting for election integrity." Or Billy Mitchell again saying that he was busy, wasn't he? Saying that I really want to decrease automobile deaths. I mean, it's none of it is all that concerning right now. won't be until it goes in the sausage grinder and see what comes out.
Sure.
So, Jessica, as we wind down, do you have any closing thoughts?
Well, we kind of talked about how it was before the show. We talked about how it was like one of the issues that resolved itself in the sense of Biden back down. But I just want to talk about like the utter stupidity of the concept of possibly banning gas stoves. Like it's one of those things that was so asinine that I was certain it had to be something that they threw out there just to distract us from all the other BS that's going on. Like that would be the only logical explanation.
Yeah, and look, the problems they're talking about are not with gas stoves. The problems they're talking about is with ventilation. Anybody who has a standard house, obviously nicer houses have much better ventilation. But, your standard house where you have a one-piece cooktop and oven, and you have a microwave above it, and you have a fan that sucks the fumes. But if you put your hand on top of the microwave or in the front of the microwave, you feel all the air coming out. It's not ventilating. It runs through a charcoal filter. It keeps oil from splashing all over the place, and then the vapor collects in that filter, but it's not changing the gas. Nicer cooktops have a vent that actually runs outside, similar to the vent in your bathroom. That the fan in your bathroom that blows outside has a flapper that keeps critters out of it and blows outside. But yeah, this is like you and I were talking about, an attempt to put everybody on the electrical grid.
Yeah, you can't be self-sustainable in any way.
I mean, with a lighter, you can get a gas range to light with no electricity. At least one I still have. I'm sure they're going to change that, put computers in there, and say, well, there's no computer, no gas, or no power, no gas.
Right.
But you can also run a gas stove, even if you on a basic generator. You could run your refrigerator, your Wi-Fi. Obviously, you don't want us to live without Facebook. Charge your phones and light your range with a regular camp generator. Versus all electric, we talked about before about the upgrade to the power grid. You'd have to put like a Generac or something like that to run the whole house in order just to cook some macaroni and cheese. Speaking of cooking, the inflation story of the week: eggs. I'm tired of hearing about eggs. They're up 60%, and that's a huge number. But you can tell which news outlet you're consuming based on whether they say it's 60% or $3 a carton. Because $3 a carton doesn't sound that bad.
No.
But when you say 60%, and look, eggs go into a lot of stuff. A lot of things that we consume. Restaurants obviously go through a lot of eggs. So 60% on that kind of stuff. And is all important, but I'm just tired of it. All I've heard for a week is eggs. And instead of addressing the overall problem with inflation and saying those food prices and consumables don't go into the CPI, don't go into the inflation number. So anyway, all sorts of happy endings this week. So for Eric Cumby, our editor, for Jessica Szilagyi, my partners in the endeavor, I'm Dave Roberts. Have a great week.
Oh, I've been running from the law. Hope they won't shoot me down soon. They sing on a sleepless night. Try to catch me howling at the moon.